Mongolia, a dry land battered by the winds. For 10 years, she has been hit hard by unprecedented climatic change. Mongolian herders who have always been nomads are in danger. The steppe can no longer feed their herds. Marush Naranku is the matriarch of a nomadic family. Her livestock, divided between her children, consists of 3,000 heads of cattle. The work is hard, and with the changing climate, it often becomes perilous. Marush is 70 years old. She has witnessed years when water was scarce, lived through harsh winters, and has roamed as far as 100 kilometers to bring her cattle to better pastures. A sky full of dust, a drought, dried wells. Marush has seen it all, with the exception of one thing: all of these plagues happening at the same time. In spite of all her known, Marush cannot get them to rise.
We live only on what nature gives us. But nature is dying. I don't know how we are going to survive. The earth is changing. Maybe the time has come for us to disappear.
Cornered between Russia and China, with a territory 3 times as large as France, Mongolia has 2.7 million inhabitants. 41% of Mongolians are farmers, and they produce 19% of the country's wealth. Mongolia sits on a high plateau at an altitude of 1,500 meters. Far from any ocean or sea, it is engulfed by continental winds. With this changing weather, the winds have become so strong and so violent that they ravage everything in their path. Winters have become so cold that the temperatures reach minus 60 degrees, far from the average of minus 40 degrees. The Mongolians call it azud. It's a terrible cold that kills humans and cattle. For the past 10 years, zoods have become more frequent and the phenomenon has amplified. This past winter, 5 million heads of cattle have died. 16,000 families lost everything. Without any alternative, they have come in droves to pitch their yurts in town. Marush has been through this before. A year ago, she lost half of her cattle. This was a first for her. Tired and depressed, she decided to spend her winters in town in Hovd. In the summer, she will rejoin the steppe that she left to find her cattle that she left with her children. Even at the age of 70, she is still the matriarch of the family and gives advice, judgments, and ultimately makes the decisions. Widowed for 10 years, Marush has 14 children and has therefore received 2 government medals. Her oldest child is 52 years old and her youngest is 24. Over the years, they have given her 40 grandchildren, and she knows each of them by name and age. Today, Marush says goodbye to her children that live in town. She has been here all winter and is impatient to get back to the plains. Marush wants to rejoin her children and her cattle as fast as possible.
So, is it good? Can I come through the pass?
Are the children in good health? How many cattle did the zood kill? Apart from these questions, Marush needs to know if life as a nomad is still a possibility. It takes 6 hours to arrive at the camp where her children are, on the Lake Karasnor, the Black Water Lake. Marush's family has always lived around this lake. At 72 kilometers long, 23 kilometers wide, and 4 meters deep, it's the largest freshwater lake in Mongolia. Inhabited by 65 islands and frozen, Marush's children have two camps, one in the south and one in the north. They are 50 kilometers apart, and they watch their animals according to their categories. Marush's first visit is to her 12th child, Jav Hallen, her 27-year-old daughter, and her husband.
Hello!
The polite nomadic shepherds ignore the urgency. Before anything else, they must savor the joy of seeing each other and appreciate the perfume of the snuff tobacco, ritually presented by the master of the house.
And your health? All is well?
It's well. It's going well.
And the herds are okay?
Yes, the herds are fine.
So what is new?
Everything is calm, as you can see.
Marush is reassured. Her children and grandchildren appear to be in good health.
And you, my little one, did you look after the goats?
Oh no, the goats still scare him.
Did you go and look for some dung then?
Oh no, he's no longer scared.
Mother of a large family, Marush understands the difficulty of raising cattle when the children are young.
And you, are you tired?
It was a little hard this winter.
Yeah, there wasn't many of us that could work. We lacked some help.
The large cattle and the camels, how did they spend the winter?
They're fine, they held their own. They're in good form. They stayed on the island. We'll bring them back later.
Despite the politeness and the modesty of her son-in-law, Marush understands that this winter the couple have lost a lot. In front of the enclosure, she learns the sad truth. 70% of the goats have had miscarriages. What is left of the kids is all that remains to her daughter and her husband.
The goats weren't robust enough, which is surely why they miscarried. They were probably not fat enough.
Yeah, but this winter was really cold, you see? There also wasn't enough grass.
One goat sells for 20 to 40 euros. 10 goats would be enough to feed this family for a whole year.
Don't you worry, the family will help you.
At least the children are older. This one is Sarangorel, which means moonbeam. She is 10 years old. Marush has been widowed for 10 years. The climatic upheaval started 10 years ago. Thanks to Moonbeam, 10 years of sadness has equaled 10 years of joy. When her grandma comes to the lake, Moonbeam does not leave her sight. Marush sees nature as a living being and she holds it in the highest regards. Over time, her nomadic people have based their beliefs on nature. They consume what they produce. They don't pollute the water nor the land, and they don't cut the vegetation to use as fuel.
I remember, before there used to be only grass here. Now, as you can see, it's only stones and the desert.
In the space of 10 years, the average rainfall has gone from 150 milliliters down to 50, 3 times less water than is needed to balance life here. Despite the lake, the humidity created by the vegetation fails and does not hold the rain. With desertification, an increase in temperatures is more important and is one of the reasons that the zood is so deadly. Even today, in the spring, it can be bitterly cold.
If the cold continues, it's going to be very hard. In general, the spring, it's the hardest time. The 3 months of spring is a delicate time for the herd. If the small animals make it through the spring, it's good. It's the turning point of the whole year. Natural catastrophes are hard for the whole world. It's nature that decides. We are at its mercy. Come, let us make some donuts.
If Marush is wary of spring, it's because of her experience. When a farmer manages to cross a zood while preserving their cattle, they believe their ordeal has ended. However, a zood touches the land deeply. The outcome? In springtime, the vegetation is lacking in vitamins for the herd's newborns. They grow up poorly, and by mid-May, we sometimes see that the cattle spared by the Zood. This morning, Marouche joins the shoreline camp 50 kilometers in the north. Her 10th child.
Come here.
He is scared. He is hiding.
Come and say hello to my grandma.
Having just arrived, Marouche does not have the time to get her son's news. 2 neighbors from the island arrive at the yurt, and they must be greeted. If these 2 have come all the way here, they must have a good reason. Whatever it is, they must go through the ritual of the snuff box, a sign of recognition and the accepting of dialogue.
Are you having a good spring?
Yes.
What is new?
Oh, everything is good. How long have you been on the riverbank?
Oh, it's been a month since we have been here. And are your herds okay?
Yes.
The winds of yesterday and the day before, were they okay?
Oh, it was hard. What a cold.
So, what are you going to do?
Well, we've come to see you. 2 days ago, we left the island when it was really cold. It was our big move of the spring. We were surprised by the wind. It was hard, wasn't it? I gave all my feed to the animals, and I don't have any more. We need 2 or 3 more days worth of food, enough to give us time to settle somewhere. Do you think you can do something? It is so cold.
Listen, yes, I will give you some food. There's no problem. Do you know the proverb, give what you can to your tired friend, a needle or a camel? Whatever you have, it will save him. Have some tea. Please drink. Help yourself.
Take some tea and hope all goes well for you. What brings you here then?
We need some hay, Mother.
He already said that he needs some hay and that he would like us to help him. He only needs enough for 2 or 3 days. That's it.
As long as we can help each other, it won't be a problem.
We'll be helping, Mom.
Traditionally, the breeders prepare enough feed for the coming year at the end of the summer. They reap the grass from the shores of the lake. Since the climatic changes, the grass no longer grows on the shores. They must therefore take boats to the islands, where swarms of mosquitoes and other insects make the voyage more painful and arduous. At the Blackwater Lake, the breeders have an accumulation of problems. The grass no longer grows in abundance, and there is a profusion of new insect species and parasites. On top of that, their water, with the decrease in rain, does not regenerate. It becomes polluted and unsafe to be consumed. However, during the winter, the ice acts like a filter. It allows them to retrieve clean water from the lake.
Moonbeam, pick up the clean ice and put it in the basket. Do you see that the water is clean on the surface and dirty underneath? In fact, when it freezes, the impurities stay at the bottom, whereas the clean and pure water comes to the surface.
Luckily for the humans, bacteria live for only a few months of the year.
In the past, the lake was beautiful, and it has really changed. The Blackwater Lake has narrowed. Because of that, rushes and grasses do not grow. As it does not rain and the humidity is low, the grass is no more than clumps and bumps. It is a natural catastrophe, you see.
And you, Grandma? When you were younger, did you drink the lake water?
Of course we drank it. It was really pure. When we drank the lake water, we used to say that it was good for your insides, for the liver, for the health of the animals. Every goat, every lamb, horse, cow, or camel that we own is our source of life. Without them, we are nothing, and we owe them everything. 2 years ago, I lost some animals, and that had never happened to me before. You have to be blind not to realize that the lake is slowly dying. Despite everything, I have always seen life take over. I cannot help but dream that one day things will return as they were before. That the lake will be reborn, and that my family, as always, will remain living on the shores.
Tonight, the weather has changed. The zood has returned. It is dry, ready to destroy the land and to bleach it of its colors. They must act fast. If the weather continues for much longer, the newborns will die, like many animals did this winter. The urgency is to gather the scattered flock. Too often, sheep and goats turn their backs to the wind and walk on until they get lost or die from exhaustion. Meanwhile, they must also build a small yurt to help protect the newborns. This season, with such a wind, the temperature can instantly drop 20 degrees. Right now it is 5 degrees, but in 20 minutes it will be minus 15. It's the sudden change in temperature that can be fatal for the weakest animals. For the stronger ones in the herd, their metabolism helps them through the long, cold weather. The newborns are in the shelter. They must now look after the horses. With the strong winds, the horses could disperse over vast stretches, and it would take days to find them. Marouche owns 50 horses. The other 30 belong to her sons. Among the 5 different traditional Mongolian animals, goats, sheep, cows, horses, and camels, horses are the only ones that do not directly affect their economy. If they are used, it is only to ride on. They are considered noble. During the zood, they must absolutely be watched. If they wander too far from the camp, they can die.
Your horses, they do not look well. You should take them to different pastures. They should perk up and it will strengthen them. They really do not look well. Move them from here.
You're right. When the weather improves, we will move them.
You must.
It is time for her son Saihan to find another place to camp for the spring. For the past 5 years, the nomads of the lake move from camp 4 times a year, coordinating the moves with the seasons. In spring, they stay on the shores of the lake. For the summer, they go to the high valleys of the mountain, far from the mosquitoes and exhausting heat. In the autumn, they establish themselves halfway down the mountain on the regrown pastures. Finally, in winter, they return to the mountain, but in mid-altitudes away from the wind. Today, with the changing of the climate, winter has chewed up the spring and summer has swallowed the autumn. Camp moves only take place twice a year now, which is harmful to the resting of the pastures. Saihan climbed high into the mountain. He knows the valley like the back of his hand, and he has camped there often. The trees give him shade and the stream gives him pure, clean water. But this spring he is met with a rude awakening. The Zood has swept the earth. Underneath the snow, the grass is dead. It will no longer grow. The Blackwater Lake is also starting to dry up. The shift in climate created a vicious cycle. First, the rainfall started to decrease, causing the depletion of the vegetation. That in turn provoked hotter summers and colder winters. Cattle died by the dozens, and scared of losing them all, the shepherds increased their numbers. The increased cattle needed more food, and the changing climate produced less vegetation.
I am scared that things will never return to the way they were. There must be a way to prevent the country from dying, and I will find it.
Regularly, the shepherds of the Blackwater Lakes get together. This morning, Marouche, as head of the family, decides to go. Perhaps they will come up with ideas and solutions. Alarmed by the return of the Zood, the shepherds arrive by the dozen. The western half of Mongolia is the most affected by this changing climate. The shepherds would like to have some certainty. They need to get together to understand. This phenomenon, is it only a passing disturbance, or has the climate changed forever?
Hello, everyone.
Isolated from facts, the nomads do not have access to scientific information. Their only understandings of the climate changes are their personal experiences with it. It has violently changed. They need to know if everyone has had the same experience.
These past 2 years, we've had many zoods, and a lot of cattle died from the cold. We have to get rid of their carcasses by burning them.
We have a zood almost every year now. Our pastures are now like deserts on the island of lakes. It has become a sea of sand.
We are obliged to combine our resources to continue to live, obliged to unite and cooperate. Life has become difficult. The desertification is a natural catastrophe. The weather has completely changed. We'll have to unite without the help of the state. No, we can't depend on anything.
Abandoned by the government, the Mongolian shepherds must educate themselves. Thanks to the television, they can get the information that concerns them all.
Recently, there was a large meeting in Copenhagen with the heads of state in regards to global warming, where they said that if the temperature increases by 1 degree, water resources decrease. And that would be global desertification. We absolutely need to know how to get out of it.
In these conditions, no one would want their children to become farmers. It's the future. How will they live? Will Mongolia always have cattle or not? That is the question we're asking.
Mongolia cease to be a country with no livestock? Marouche will not find the answers she needs here. No shepherd has the secret to avoid the loss of their cattle during the zood. Last year, when Marouche lost part of her herd, she sent her youngest son, Jar Galant, to explore new pastures. Go northeast, she told him, up to Russia if need be. Migrate, migrate. It's what Mongolian nomads have always done. Go scout, my son. But she feared that lands elsewhere might already be dead. Marouche returns to Havd. In a few days, she will take a plane and join her son, Jar Galant, whom she had sent scouting. In the meantime, she wants to explore all other options. But there are no scientists in Mongolia. Still, Marouche knows an agronomist, a specialist on livestock, who gives a well-founded analysis. His name is Ravdan, and he runs the WWF office in Havd.
In your opinion, Ravdan, are there any solutions to escape this calamity? Do you have any advice to give the farmers? Any ideas to help us get out of this crisis?
Yes, Marash. They do exist. But we have to change our ways. Around the lake, there was overgrazing because of the goats and sheep. About 60% of the livestock are goats, and they are harmful to the region around the lake.
Normally, the nomadic shepherds raise the 5 snouts: goats, sheep, cows, horses, and camels on the same pasture. But the worldwide demand for cashmere wool that comes from goats has prompted the farmers attracted by easy money to raise only goats. In the last 10 years, Mongolia has become the #1 producer of cashmere at the expense of nature. Now the goats eat everything in their path. Everywhere that the goats graze, the erosion of the soil is irreversible. But there are solutions to combat the problem.
First, the ground should be left to rest. If we leave the grass to grow, then it will be superb in the spring. On the other hand, it means moving from these lands because, as the Mongols, the rain follows the grass. Knowing that it rains only where there is vegetation, by leaving land to rest, it will rain and the grass will grow.
To face the new climatic and ecological news, Ravdan suggests the nomads change their ways, to let the pastures rest. But it is not an easy feat. In 1990, the Soviets stopped occupying the country and imported 5 million heads of cattle per year. As a result, the steppes of Mongolia support 6 times more cattle than they can handle. Pastures are being exploited beyond their means and are becoming exhausted. Many cattle die of malnutrition. The shepherds then have to add to the herd to make up for ones they have lost. Finally, the zoods attacking the herds do not play a natural role. According to Ravdan, the time has come to find a balance of animals in the herds.
If we develop the milking cows and sell the milk at the Havd market, it is a great way to increase revenue for the farmers. At the center of town, there are 35,000 inhabitants. That is 8,000 families, and we are currently importing milk. If our farmers are able to provide the people of Havd milk, it would be profitable. I tell you, we profit more with 50 well-fed and cared-for animals than with 500 in poor condition. A choice must be made.
We humans are insignificant and too small to negotiate with the climate. If we want to live, we will have to make changes or accept our disappearance.
Marouche can think of 2 ways to get her children out of this situation: either abandoning their nomadic lifestyle, and thanks to the money from the livestock they can live in town, or to migrate with their cattle to other lands. Jar Galant, her youngest son, whom Marouche had sent out to explore, has sent a letter. It says that he has found a place where the land is generous and the grass abundant. The only downside is that cattle are raised differently than they are used to. Marush does not understand. There are not 1,000 ways to raise cattle. Tomorrow she will take a plane to meet up with her son to see how he is managing. In the meantime, Marush has already made plans if she needs to abandon her profession. In Hovd, she has established a company, Marush & Co. When she gave her children some of her cattle, she sold the rest to improve the life of her children living in the city. With this money, she invested in different small companies, according to her children's individual needs. Nomads practically eat nothing but meat. Marush's daughter, Shimeg, who is 48 years old and has 2 children, wanted to sell fruits and vegetables. In the urban centers, the eating of fruits and vegetables, as well as the idea of organics, has become very fashionable. Marush bought a little stand at the market for Shimeg. Tul, another one of Marush's daughters, aged 27, wanted to start a business wholesaling flour. Her mother helped her start her small business, and it is doing well. Tul chooses the grains very carefully, and people come from all over to buy from her.
You know, Mom, I have a lot of clients.
Yes, your flour sells well?
Yes, it's the best quality.
For her son, Oshir, aged 43, Marush bought a Russian container in which he stores and sells scrap metal and batteries for solar panels. Even though selling scrap is a small enterprise, with his Chinese clients buying up everything, even cans, this business is doing better and better. With so many families in town living in yurts, there are no accessible bathrooms. Along with the wife of her son, Bat, age 51, Marush has invested in a building which they have converted into a public bath.
You have managed to maintain a good temperature? That's incredible.
In the same building, Marush installed a small grocery store for her daughter Jargal, age 39 and widowed, just like she is. It does not make a lot of money, but it keeps her occupied and makes her life more meaningful. It also helps her to provide for her 2 sons. Not all of the activities of Marush & Co. are on a small scale. With the money that his mother gave him, Bator, the 7th child, age 40, was able to buy old machines from a closed Russian factory. He creates fine wooden furniture, which is popular throughout the region.
Hello, Mom.
Hello, son. How are you?
Good, good. What are you doing around here?
I came to see you before leaving.
Okay, you're going to see Sogo, no?
Yes, I'm going to see your brother.
Tell him to hurry up and send me some boards. I need some. I have some urgent orders.
When she felt that her son Sogo could be trusted in the family business, he was set up as a wood wholesaler. Because of this, the carpentry business of her other son, Bator, profits from raw materials and preferential pricing. Finally, Marush has reserved her last visit for her daughter Bayar, 29 years old, who works in IT.
I always dream of my childhood. When I was with you at the lake, oh, we relaxed by the reeds. We listened to the wind, it was like music.
Oh, everything is ruined over there. If you saw the state of the lake, the reeds are dried. There is no more grass, everything is dead. If you saw all this, frankly, you wouldn't put up with it. There is no future there. I ask myself if your siblings should leave the lake immediately. I am having nightmares.
To move from one area to another is something nomads do all the time. But to leave it because it is dead, that is unbearable. The place where Jargaland has set up camp is 5 hours by road from Darhan, the second largest city in Mongolia, situated in the north of the country. For Marouche, decision time is nearing.
My sons can no longer stay, not even for one more year. If the new steppe is not good, we will all have to live in town.
Marouche has a reason to worry. Carcasses litter the banks of the road.
Even here there are many of them, it seems.
Jargaland warned Marouche in his letter. "Mom," he wrote, "breeders in this area stick together in the outskirts of town as they are more comfortable than at the end of the country. When I saw all these people, I told myself that eventually overgrazing will occur here too, and that the cattle are in danger. Also, I have gone much further north, and I reached a place called 3 Rivers. We are doing well, and I am waiting for you."
Hello, my son.
Oh, Mother, hi.
How are you doing?
I'm well, how are you?
The pastures are good?
Yes.
You are keeping the lambs then?
Yes, I'm doing okay.
The herds are doing okay?
Yes, everything's fine.
Are the pastures that much better here?
They're superb. The grass is amazing here.
Are you telling me the truth?
Yes.
I don't believe it.
It took Jargaland 3 months to arrive at this spot from the Blackwater Lakes. He forced himself to walk about 20 kilometers a day. He was stressed for time as he needed to settle and make camp before winter set in. Forced to find some land, never satisfied with what he was seeing, he continued north until Jargaland had eventually covered over 1,300 kilometers. But what a reward! His animals survived the Zood. In Mongolia, free grazing is written in the Constitution. No one has the right to prevent a breeder from letting their cattle feed wherever they want. Each breeder has the right to go where they want, as long as there isn't someone occupying that area. That is how Jargaland was able to find such an area and to settle there with his cattle and family.
What beautiful landscape, my son.
Yes, it's absolutely beautiful here. I did well to come here. You were smart to send me.
Oh, I am so happy to see you living in such a beautiful place. Take advantage of it and love this nature. Protect it and respect it. Nature is good for your health. With all this beautiful vegetation and this clean water, how can human beings live without what nature has to offer? It is thanks to her generosity that we are alive.
You see, after grazing, there is agricultural land.
You have come to a beautiful place, but you have to be careful that the cattle do not go on the cultivated land.
Cultivated land. That is the reason that no herders have settled in these lands. It's a revolution that Marouche needs to accept, to share the land with farmers, to constantly keep an eye on the cattle, prevent them from going into the plantations. She will have to accept the change to reduce the pasture to profit from farming zones. Around the 3 Rivers, they created a cooperative. These men and women are shepherds that have come from other regions. victims themselves of the changing climate. They have chosen to diversify into agriculture. They are living proof, if Marouche needs it, that nomads need to adapt to survive.
Hello, hello everyone. In the West, where I come from, life is hard. The environmental issues complicate life. The grass no longer grows. Our jobs are deteriorating with the occurrences of the Zud. Why are we suffering from these natural catastrophes? It no longer rains. It's because of the weather and also because of the human activity. In reality, we are governed by nature. On your side, what do you do to cope?
Marouche, we have a lot of problems, and the way to cope is to unite together.
You see, we are a cooperative, and we act together. We combine all of our money, and we decide together how to spend it.
I will give you an example, dear sister. On this map, you see one of our plots. On this plot, together we are paying for a fence. With all our help, we are going to plant some trees, like sea buckthorn. And around the fence, we will plant some trees that prevent the wind, to prevent the plantation and avoid land erosion. This is our large plan. In the future, around 2020, we plan that our land will look like this more or less. It is our dream, and that is why we collaborate together.
Marouche has never seen a project that links the farmers and livestock farming.
We understood that we could no longer do this individually, and we had to adopt a logic of community support. The idea is not only to do farming, or to only raise livestock, but to do both. We have to abandon the concept of self-reliance, which is to consume only what we produce, to move towards diversification and interdependence of activities. That is our dream.
A dream. If the shepherds and the farmers could share the steppe and cooperate without a conflict of territory, then Marouche can believe, at least for her children. Jargaland has also adapted. The farmers produce hay. He then purchases the hay to feed his cows. In return, the farmers consume his meat and milk. Jargaland now practices reduced nomadism. For Marouche, it's a new philosophy, the method that only the young, like her son, can adopt. Can it be that the interdependence between farmers and shepherds is where the future lies? This morning, Marouche decided that spring has finally settled and that they can risk shaving the wool of the goats. Here at the Three Rivers, it is no longer cold. The wool from the famous goats is less needed by them and more needed for the family. 1 kilo of their precious wool can sell for up to €3 in city factories. That is 10% of the price of one goat. A good way to balance the end of the month. No matter where Marouche goes, whether it is west or north, Mongolia is slowly coming out from the terrible Zud. At the lake where she comes from, winter is still holding its ground. Here at the Three Rivers, spring has come early. The old saying is true: the rain and water follow the grass.
Aina, look at your father. Look over there. There is no wind here.
No, Mother. And even when there is, we don't feel it. And it does not raise any dust.
Really?
The wind is mild here. We are well sheltered.
The river is magnificent, isn't it, Mother? Yes, it is really beautiful. The ancient Mongolians had a proverb regarding the water. They used to say, it is better that the water is near and the parents distant than the opposite. It is exactly like that here.
We are really, really happy here.
Marouche does not need her experience to realize that life in the Three Rivers is dreamlike. The time to make a decision approaches. With global warming, the traditional balance between livestock, pasture, and herd is broken. Marouche's experience has become null and void. How do we deal with it? How do the ancestors fight against these new plagues? In Marouche's eyes, to find the answers to these questions, we need to preserve this area like the ancestors did. Respect nature and respect the elements.
I have made my decision. We are moving to Three Rivers.
For a Mongolian shepherd, leaving behind one camp in favor of another is normal. But to cross the country to live in an abundantly green region is like being born again.
Those of my children whom live as nomads, like I've always done, would not be able to live in a town. Too much pollution, the stress. They live with the nostalgia of open spaces. In town, the history of our shepherds would die, and we will do anything for that not to happen. My little moonbeam has the right to grow up seeing her herds thrive on the beautiful green steppe and grass. It is here that I will take her. It's a trip from one world to another, one that she will do in the future.
Live to the rhythm of the days and nights. Walk to the slow and regular pace of the animals.
To cross 1,300 kilometers of unknown land, to walk 20 kilometers per day for 3 months, I will lead my family to the Three Rivers, even if this is my last voyage.
For Marouche, this voyage is a memory brought by the winds, a time suspended by each gesture, every step, each bleeding sound like the end of a tradition. To learn to live somewhere else and differently, to write a new page. Make a new memory. Marouche, mother of 14 children, accepts it. Moonbeam, one day, will understand.